With all the problems in a confused and harsh world, we may well pray for intervention. The getting of it may not be what we wanted after all. Goodman Thomas. Thomas Cooney lived alone as a bachelor in the old house on the top of the bluff overlooking the ocean, a 2-story place with gables and old leaded glass windows popular a century before. It was well kept, and a tidy house at the north end of the lane outside the village, and the younger folk, with children of their own, had always known kind old Tom to live there. The older folks could not quite remember him or his parents. In fact, the very house he lived in, no one had a memory of when it was built or by whom. The thoughts of him and his house came and went like the evening fog that rolled in from the cold North Sea. Our Thomas, they would say, is a bit of a mystery. Then they would cross themselves in case there was a curse for the saying ill of him or his house. And then there was his dog, that smart, happy, ageless Sheltie that watched over Thomas's goat each and every day, 7 days and 7 nights a week. Thomas was in his 80s, so the oldest recollection could make him, but he still appeared young and strong of limb. His hair was black as ebony, and his face smooth without the wrinkled care that the climate here marks upon a person in life wears furrow and crease. The dog, too, was always spry and quick of foot as it danced to and fro to keep the wayward goats in line. It was never remembered as a pup. It had never been a pup. Only the faithful servant it had just always been. Some said in secret whispers that the dog was evil, but that same dog would lead the goats down the middle of the town each and every Sunday while Thomas sat in his favorite and constant pew. The dog heading the living lawn mowers onto the church lawn, keeping the church grounds the envy of every parish in Ireland. Some took to marking the grass for its length, and found it peculiar that 2 inches it was always left, when it was in a goat to nibble down to the dirt. Did the dog order them in some ungodly way to such care? What dog, if of the dark realm, could walk hallowed ground? The dog would await the go in peace after Mass was done, always lying in the topmost step, eyes flickering that way and this, awaiting his master and watching that no goat should stray. No one would say a bad word against Thomas, so good a man was he. The oldest held their tongues lest it called it failing of aging minds and could itself be the grist of rumor and mistrust. It was so that, truth be told, others aged in a natural way and went on their rewards looking road-worn and painted. It was only the green of envy that had the tongues wag such as they did, that being a normal human failing. Thomas was, after all, one of them. Each and every Friday and Saturday, he would come down to the Brown Bear and there share a pint or two. And did he not often buy a round, as was expected for every good man to do, to bless the prosperity of his little village? If one person would say, "'Tis help I'll be needing," was it not always Goodman Thomas who said, "Let me help with your garden," or "Let me paint that," or "Fix this," or "Tote that"? He too, our Tommy, with a voice like an angel, would often break out, when it wasn't expected, into a lively tune or funny tale to the delight of all. Thomas's goodwill often reached up to the bishop himself. It was said His Eminence loved nothing more than a few days sitting and writing his special sermons in the same finely tended gardens and goat-trimmed lawns of our local church, sipping on a sweet coffee and munching on a fresh basket of buttered scone. This giving the village's good priest a reason to find a special prayer of favor toward Thomas, his fine dog, and those blessed goats. Then one Saturday night, Thomas came in late to the pub and stood the bar with a pint in hand, saying he had something important to say. Even Father Brian was there that night. All fell silent, thinking this was to be the night where he shall reveal himself. And Thomas said, I have been told by God to dig holes on my property. You will think me daft for the doing of it, and you will no doubt speak ill of me for my endeavor. I will lose you as friends, and I know that I will not be welcome to come back here and be one of you after this night. I tell you this because I was told to do so. It makes me very sad having to say it, as well as the doing of it, for you now know how fond I am of tidiness and of those peaceable nights here with you. It was Father Brian who asked, Why would God have you do this? It took Thomas some time to answer. He chewed his lip and made sounds in his throat. You will think me mad, no doubt. I have reason to ponder my long comings and goings as I have. Long have I been on this earth, heard the murmurs of heaven and the songs of angels. I have prayed to be taken, so weary have I become. I have prayed and have been ignored, and then came a voice so clear, dig, it says. Dig, says it again. On and on it says this voice, on through the night. Then when fatigue came well to overcome me, it all comes clear. Out of one hole that I am to dig will step the Redeemer. Would not that be the devil himself coming up from the depths of hell, the priest asks? I would not presume to bandy words of theology with you, my learned Father Brian. Is it not true that Satan was given this earth as his farm to reap and sow as he is able? Does not old Nick already walk the earth? Why would he step out of a hole? The Lord said to me, He, meaning the Redeemer, will come up from within a hole I will have dug. It was the innkeeper that asked, When will you know to stop your toil? You will know he walks among us when I stop digging, said Thomas in a strangely quiet voice. Every backbone gave a shudder that heard it. Surely none will forget its temper, as like a specter had passed through each there that night. For the truth be told, what man alive today is ready for the meeting of such a man? Thomas left, looking lost and forlorn. The tavern was quiet for the rest of the night. The next day, Tom sold the goats, and he and his faithful dog began to dig. Soon there were holes everywhere on Tom's property. There were big holes and small ones, and each hole subject to long discussions by the townsfolk as to the meaning, as to the width and depth. Some wagers were flying as to the dimensions of the next hole and the next. It wasn't long before outsiders came and joined in on the gambling. Weekly buses would arrive with money they were willing to spend, win or lose. The village prospered. When Tom had dug all the holes his own property could bear, he started purchasing other properties. No one dared take advantage of him, and he was able to purchase most of the fallow lands around the village at just slightly above fair price. It was Tom himself that insisted that a profit be made on each and every parcel. There was no pesky and time-consuming escrow. Cash was exchanged, title exchanged, and digging commenced. There should be no interrupting this lucrative wagering and tourist industry that had now found new life in the village. A village turning into a town rather quickly. Many conspiratorial conversations began to spring up. It was Gene the Rigger that mentioned an oddity in the tavern Friday night. Has anyone besides me noted? He took a great gulp of ale. Seems I ain't seen Tom at all. That is to say, I ain't seen him a-digging in the daylight, and we ain't seen him here. Of course, he said he wouldn't be a-coming in here no more. It just seems odd not to see him at all, just and only the hole he dug. The Woman's Society, it was heard, made comment on the unscheduled discussion as to the question of Tom's funds. The heated argument moved from the topic of how much to where is it, to the final exploration as to why Tom never married, so that one of their sisters could have the man put away and use his money for the right and proper use. At the church, the elders took some notice that Tom worked on the Sabbath as well. Although no one actually saw him working, The holes would still be dug in similar depths and width as any other time, as any other day. It was Mrs. Walker, the wife of the local attorney, who pointed it out. Seems to me that it was that Tom was digging for the Redeemer that Sunday would bear more importance than the low order Tom shows it. Surely we should see him kneeling with humility in front of us all. It would be a reaffirmation of faith to the entire congregation. The town leaders even started a little buzz. Mayor Bradley brought up the point. Should Tom stop digging, it would be in the town's best interest to have someone secretly, perhaps at night, continue to dig. There was a sinister element to the discussion as well. A conversation was spoken in political speak that it may be necessarily to permanently remove Tom from his duty. Of course, that was only of the many options suggested at that table for the benefit and well-being of their fine little town. It was the bishop that trumped them all. In an edict sent to the church, the bishop wrote, "It is the church's well-considered opinion that the great sin of gambling has turned God's loving village into Sodom. The good minister who has shepherded the people of the village for over 20 years has been overcome with a total disregard of morals, and the direct word of God is listed on the tablets carried down from the mountains. The holes being dug by one Mr. Cooney, in the opinion of the church, is not a holy work, but the devious and evil machinations of the beast. Gaming dens, adult bookstores, motels allowing unmarried people to cohabitate, and nightclubs serving cocktails and allowing dancing to ear-splitting rock music have cropped up due to the huge amount of money being created. Although the church, too, has benefited from the increased contributions brought on by the illicit gain and subsequent guilt, I myself made a friendly and innocent bet early on, but now see the dark one's long-range plan. Tom Cooney may be lost, but the good people of the village can yet be saved." So an organized group, with banners flying, descended upon the gambling halls and adult bookstores, screaming judgment down upon the unholy. Tom and his dog continued to dig. The village began to tear itself apart. Friends and families split from each other. Crime increased, violence increased, bankruptcies increased, and the government noticed and took action. Laws were passed that disallowed the betting on holes. The result was the gambling dens closed. The tourists stopped coming. The adult bookstores closed. The nightclubs died. Most of the citizens left for the bright lights and vice available in larger cities. In 1 month, the village was a ghost town. Tom and his dog continued to dig. A scandal fell over the mayor because of his involvement with the element that brought the gambling into the village. He took his own life. The owner of the original pub ran off with a topless dancer. His wife closed the doors and went south to live with her sister. The good reverend, made old by what he considered his failure to save the souls of those he felt were his charge, he had a stroke and was put into a home. His wife got a divorce and married a free evangelistic television minister with whom she had been secretly having an internet relationship for years, and moved to Nashville. Then a very odd thing happened. Tom and his dog stopped digging. Tom and his dog could not be found. The government made the village and the holes a national park. Money again began to flow. Churches were built almost one against the other. The Redeemer was here on earth, and this was the place where he came to earth. No one knew who the Redeemer was or where he had gone, but faith ran high, and miraculous healings were reported each and every Sunday. Tom and his dog were soon forgotten. Until no one ever counted how many holes Tom dug, but it was surely in the thousands. On January 1st, in the middle of the night, all the holes were filled in. In fact, there was no evidence that there had ever been a hole anywhere, never mind thousands. Plants grew over the places where the holes had once been. The dirt was seamless, and all looked very natural. The feat caused those few who woke up on the 1st of January to stand with their mouths open. God had surely made a judgment. The national park status was rescinded. A grand jury was assembled to research the possibility of fraud. The rest of the citizens abandoned the village without giving their forwarding addresses. Then the sun was going down, and the sky was beautiful. Tom sat on a rock petting his dog behind the ear. "Well, that went better than we thought," the dog's thoughts whispered into Tom's mind like a warm breeze. "Yeah, I have enjoyed our stay here." Tom increased the force of his scratching. "Where did he go?" thought the dog. "What makes you think it's a he?" "Well, I just thought." "Rome first. After that, who knows?" Tom said. "I guess we better go home. It's time." The dog jumped up with his tail wagging. Tom stood taking one last look at the sunset. He and the dog walked back up the path to their house. When they went in and closed the door, the house faded away as the night laid down its blanket.